Hey everyone, it's Azim. We're going to go over the different types of membranes found throughout the body, as well as fluid compartments. I'll actually start with fluid compartments. So when we think of fluid inside of the body, I'm sure you think of blood, or maybe saliva, or things like that. But if we're talking about compartments within the body, then blood would be a good example. So let's take a quick look here. Here's a blood vessel. The inside of this blood vessel is filled with cells as well as a bunch of fluid. What blood is made of, it's a combination of fluid and cells. If we remove the cells, the fluid that's left over, which is water plus a bunch of other nutrients and waste and other things, that's called plasma. So inside of a blood vessel, that fluid is called plasma. Fluid that's in the body that's not inside a blood vessel and also not inside an actual cell, that's known as interstitial fluid. So if there's fluid surrounding all of these cells, all of these tissues, that's interstitial fluid. If we can go to a cellular level, give me 1 second. If we can go to a cellular level and look at the fluid within cells, here's a cell, so this is obviously much more magnified. The fluid inside of the cell, that compartment is called intracellular fluid. So all the fluid inside of all of the cells, that's called intracellular fluid. Intracellular inside of cell, outside of cell is interstitial, but if it's inside of a blood vessel, that is plasma. Those are the three major fluid compartments of the body. And it's important that we have these three different fluid compartments because we want to regulate what goes in and out of our cells. Yes, we want nutrients, but we don't want waste or toxins. So by regulating what passes from the blood to the interstitial fluid and then from the interstitial fluid to the cells, we can have a better control. It's just giving us more time for checkups. The four different membranes of the body, I'm not talking about plasma membranes, that's a different type of membrane. I'm talking about membrane coverings of organs and tissues and organs. There are four types. The first type is a serous membrane, and serous membranes, the three major ones, are the ones that cover the lungs. That's the pleural membrane. What covers the heart, that's the pericardial membrane, and what covers many of the abdominal organs, that's the peritoneal membrane. All three membranes are called serous membrane, or type of serous membrane, and what that means is they're filled with serous fluid. And so the serous fluid would be a type of interstitial fluid. It's very watery and viscous, or watery and slippery. So this slipperiness helps lubricate these organs as they move around, preventing damage from friction. Once again, the three major serous membranes are the pleural membrane, pericardial, surrounding the heart, and peritoneal, surrounding many of the abdominal organs. So that's one membrane, serous. Another membrane type is the skin. The skin is known as cutaneous membrane, and cutaneous membrane is a combination of the epidermis, the keratinized stratified squamous that's on top, as well as the dermis, which is the papillary layer made of loose areolar connective tissue, and the reticular layer made of dense irregular connective tissue. So those three layers, the epidermis, papillary layer of the dermis, and reticular layer of the dermis, those make up the cutaneous membrane. The fat that's deep to skin, that's known as the hypodermis, but since it's below this cutaneous membrane, it's also known as the subcutaneous. So say you get a subcutaneous injection, you're injecting just deep to the dermis, into the hypodermis. So we've talked about the serous membrane, which is for minimizing friction of organs, cutaneous membrane, which is for protection of the outside. We also have mucous membranes, and mucous membranes are typically lining tracts, whether that's a respiratory tract or a digestive tract or a reproductive tract or a urinary tract. So here you can see in the nasal cavity, it's lined with tissue, our oral cavity lined with special epithelium, the larynx and trachea, the esophagus, the kidneys, the vagina or male reproductive pathways like the urethra or ductus deferens, those would all be considered mucous membranes. Mucous membranes are unlike, well, they're similar to cutaneous membranes in that cutaneous membranes are stratified squamous. Mucous membranes are also stratified squamous, but they're non-keratinized. Keratinized is great for waterproofing. We don't want our insides to be waterproofed. We want to be able to absorb water, and so mucous membranes are non-keratinized stratified squamous. And as the name suggests, there's a lot of mucus production lining these organs so that we can minimize water loss but still allow for transfer of things. It is more delicate because it's non-keratinized. What type of epithelium you find, it varies. Sorry, I think I misspoke. Yes, the cutaneous membrane is keratinized stratified squamous. Many mucous membranes, but not all, many mucous membranes are stratified squamous, non-keratinized. So the nasal cavity, oral cavity, esophagus, which is hiding behind here, the anus and vagina, those are all examples of where you'd find mucous membranes with non-keratinized stratified squamous. The trachea and larynx, though, it is mucous membrane, but it's actually lined with pseudostratified columnar. Or the uterus and the stomach and intestines, those are lined with simple columnar. So it varies what kind of epithelium you have for a mucous membrane. All of them, though, deep to that epithelium have an areolar connective tissue as a cushion to attach it to deeper tissues. So we've talked about serous membranes, cutaneous membranes, mucous membranes. Our fourth type of membrane is a serous membrane. And serous membranes are ones found at movable joints. Did I say serous? I'm sorry. Synovial. Did I say that right? Anyways, synovial membranes. Synovial membranes are only found at movable joints, known as synovial joints. Synovial joints like this elbow here or this shoulder, we need lubrication lining these joints. So just like you need lubrication for your organs, you need lubrication for movable joints. And so there would be a lining of tissue, of serous membrane, synovial membrane, filled with synovial fluid, and synovial fluid is very lubricating. This is different than something like these discs. These discs are actually fibrous cartilage, but our spine can move. So, for instance, this is a synovial joint. These points on either side of the spine, that is a synovial joint. These synovial joints are lined with synovial fluid. The synovial fluid not only helps lubricate, but it helps give nourishment to the cartilage that it's bordering the bones, because cartilage is avascular. And one other distinction of synovial versus, say, serous. Synovial, found at joints, they lack a continuous basement membrane, meaning there's this continuous transfer of fluids between interstitial fluid within tissues and then the synovial fluid, which is also considered interstitial fluid. All right, hopefully that last part wasn't too confusing. Once again, synovial at joints, serous around organs, mucus lining tracts, and cutaneous on the outside of our body.